Hey, in this video we're going to look at the new analog Rytm OS, which is a 1.30 release. And in this OS release we've got a bunch of new machines.
12.
So yeah, we've got 12 new machines to check out, and yeah, let's get started. So let's start with the Cymbal engine. So this is how it sounds like by default. And here you have three component levels, which are the three different spectras of the cymbal. So you can like have a mix of them. You have a tune parameter to change the tune of the cymbal. You have also a type configuration here, which changes the oscillator configuration. So you can get different tones of cymbals. You also have hits. And this parameter is really good for parameter locking. For example, if you assign different ones here, and maybe some hits here too. Yeah. And of course, if you start adding the other parameters, you can get some really cool sounds out of it. Yeah.
And we've also got a new type of hi-hat, open hi-hat, cymbal and cowbell, and that is the metallic types of synthesis. And the hi-hat sounds like this. So it's a bit more of a tonal sound. We got the open hi-hat, which is quite similar. Cymbal. The cowbell. For a more different type of hi-hat.
And we also have a new Hihat Engine, which is the basic hi-hat engine. And this is how it sounds like. And you got parameters for example, the transient decay. And you can even reset the oscillator each time it gets trigged. You have tone control as well as the tuning parameter as well.
And we got three new bass drums. One of them is called Plastic. This one actually combines frequency modulation and rig modulation. They use it at the same time. So when you have type set to 0 here, you just have the frequency modulation. So if I pull up on the modulation parameters, you hear the amount of the modulation going in. If I then switch on the ring modulation, it gets added to the signal. And when you combine them like this, you get these strange overtones. Maybe filter it down a bit. And what you can also do is make kind of cool synth sounds out of this engine. So this is sort of like a bass going on. Maybe add in the bass drum. And yeah, it has a very varied tone to it. Third one there. So you can get these freaky patterns going on with just this bass drum.
So the next bass drum model is called Sharp. And this is how it sounds like by default. So you got like different waveforms to select for this model. And with these waveforms you can actually end up making synth sound as well. But let's beef it up with some overdrive and some filtering maybe. So maybe we could change the type of really cool kicks out of it, pretty straightforward. And you can also make some synth sounds out of it as well, like I've done here. And maybe, yeah.
And the third new bass drum is called Silky, and this is a sort of bread and butter bass drum where you can get all these nice sounds very easily. It's meant to be just overall a really solid, good bass drum, quite classic. So it has a dust parameter, which just puts in a little bit of white noise. A VCO click that is using the second oscillator to have this richer click, and it pairs very well with distortion when the noise is applied. Getting these very classic techno kicks, and also very usable as maybe as a tom. sounds like.
And the next engine we'd like to show you is the Snare Natural, and this is how it sounds like when you first select the machine. And so you have like control over noise, so you have noise decay, and you have high pass and low pass filter for the noise, and as well as a resonance setting. And you have the body, which is the body decay, meaning the oscillator of the snare, and you can tune it here. What's really cool is when you start adding overdrive, how the oscillator and the noise gets mixed in between can result in some really interesting sounds when you get the decay right on the noise and the oscillator. Yeah, and of course when you add a bit of reverb. Yeah.
And we've got this new sort of utility machine called Impulse, which sends out a very loud click that's usable for triggering external drum modules, for example. So I got this Bug brand drum module here that I'm triggering with one of the channels on the Rytm. And you can add in the internal synthesis, of course. And what you can also do with the Impulse is trigger filters. So you get these pinging the filters. If you have a bit of resonance on the filter, you'll get these sine tones. So let's just mix it all in. And of course, you can add some frequency modulation from an LFO to the filter for a more FM type sound. And all around a very usable little thing.
We also have a noise engine, and this is how it sounds like. You get a bunch of parameters with it, such as decay and attack. You have a low pass filter with its own resonance. You have a high pass filter also at the same time. And you have a sweep amount for the filter. This engine is really good to layer it up with samples, or just to come up with snare sounds or hi-hat sounds, or anything that you can synthesize out of a noise engine. So let's take a look at a couple of patterns me and Simon made. And on these patterns, we only use the analog synthesis engine. So there's no samples or anything else, just the new engines, so that you guys can have a good idea of what to expect from these machines. So I've got 2 tracks running here. On the first one, I have this synth line going on, and I'm using the Snare Natural. And if we play around a bit, on the kick track, I'm using the Silky engine, and there's a bit of overdrive and a lot of filtering. So if you open the filters a bit, you get the idea. Yeah. Let's unmute these 2 tracks. So on this track, I'm using the Plastic engine to make this interesting synth sound at the end of every bar. And with the mod parameter, you can change the tone of this synth sound to interesting results actually, which is very nice touch actually. And on this track I'm using the natural snare to come up with this snare sound with a lot of overdrive. Let's turn the decay up a bit. Yeah, you can get these nice snare sounds out of this. Yep. Let's unmute the hi-hat tracks here. So on the hi-hat track I'm using the basic engine. Try the transient decay. Yeah. And maybe add some filter to that. Now let's turn the cowbell track on. So I'm making that synth sound with a lot of overdrive on it, and I'm using the metallic cowbell. And you can hear the changes if I mess around with the filters. Turn the cymbal track on, but note that you can't hear anything because the 3 component levels are down. So I'll feed it in and then you get an idea. Yeah. So that's the cymbal engine there working. And here on this track, I have a noise engine, which is the same sequence as the kick track. So I'll just have them on. And you can see both sequences are the same. So So it's giving that little fade-in noise to have a ducking effect with the compressor. That's really cool way to use a noise engine. And finally, I have this weird synth line going on, and I've achieved this with the impulse engine, pinging the filter with a notch filter here. And I'm using the LFO at an audio rate with a fade to get this really interesting sounds out of this. And if you mess around with this speed, it gets very interesting stuff there.
Yeah, and I made a pattern as well. I'm using BD Silky for the bass drum and just have it at a very short decay coming into the filter, which is at a peak filter, which is creating this deep tail. And then I have this natural snare, this very classic snappy snare. So it's using a filter with some resonance just to get it in the right range. Also just a tiny bit of overdrive to get that, you know, that rough timbre. Also got these metallic hi-hats, which I've also got just a little bit of filter and some reverb on them. And yeah, got them tuned to a way I like. Also got the right cymbal going on with the C-type configuration, which is the one I preferred for this one. Got a pretty good set of components here. Maybe you can play around with them a little bit. Can get quite a lot of different variants using this one. Also got some reverb on that one. And then of course I have the BD Plastic running a sort of synth line here. It's very nice for these type of strange overtones that you can tune to your liking. Got a little bit of low pass on it to make it sound more like a bass line. And a second one for this little nice flavor. And then I'm using the impulse machines, 3 of them here, pinging filters to create a chord going through the track, which sort of sounds like an organ.
Yeah, almost like a sample.
Yeah, it's almost like a sample. And this is done by just parameter locking the filter at different frequencies, and it comes out very nice. It's a very wide range for such a machine.
So you can download the Analog Rytm 1.30 OS from the Elektron website right now. And also me and Simon have made some patches and patterns using only the new analog engines. So don't forget to check that out as well. And thank you very much.